Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today we're going to be painting blossoming bluebirds, and I'm going to be sipping on some Merlot. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for the materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 canvas. You could certainly switch up the size if you're going to be using or painting along with me. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. The colors are titanium white, cobalt blue, magenta, Mars black, green oxide, chrome yellow, burnt sienna, which I'll call rust, and I have a burnt umber, which I'll call brown. And of course you can switch up those colors if you like. I'm going to be using 3 brushes today. I have a 1/2 inch wide bristle brush, I have a number 8 round brush, and a number 2 round brush, and I'll refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. Of course, you could switch those up if you like. And if you're painting with me, you're going to need a cup of water for washing your brushes and a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, I'm going to be providing you with a couple of additional resources. One of them is a link where you could purchase the entire paint kit, the same that I'm using with the same size canvas, same paints, same brushes, all that good stuff. So that's down there for you. It's affordable too, which is always a bonus. And then there's also a link where you can download for free an image of the final painting. So just click through that. You can print it and use that as a visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions that you can print as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we are painting our sky. We're going to be using our big bristle brush, and the colors we're using are white, blue, and just a tiny bit of black. So how I'm going to do this, I am envisioning this to be a morning sky where the sun is just kind of cresting over the earth, and it's going to be brightest down in through here, and then it's going to get a little bit darker, maybe not hazy, but definitely a little bit darker over there. And I don't want my blue to be too blue because I don't want it to kind of fight with the beautiful blue that's going to be in our birds later. So I want it to kind of be on the muted side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with white over here. I'm going to be applying my paint in a circular motion. So I've got white paint on my brush, and I'm just going to start over here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up just a teeny tiny bit of blue. I'm not going to wash my brush, and I'm going to start working myself away from the bright area with a little bit of blue. And then my next time I go to pick up paint, I'll probably pick up white with just a teeny tiny bit of blue. And by the time I get about halfway over, that's when I'll start adding what I refer to as gray, because I'll just add a touch of black to my brush, which is going to mix in with the white and the blue, and it'll give me almost a duller tone of that blue that I've got. So maybe I'll put a touch down here. So really what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up white, maybe a teeny tiny bit of blue, and just a little teeny tiny touch of black. And it's safe to do it down below because we're going to have a whole bunch of grass and stuff down there. So if it gets too dark down below, don't worry about it. You can always cover it or lighten it up as it dries. So after I did that, I just picked up white on my brush, and I'm going to do the same thing over on that left-hand side as well. So I'm just kind of cruising over here. It almost doesn't matter what happens in through here because you're going to have the stumps and the birds and all that good stuff. So the middle is not super important. And I'm just keep kind of turning my brush so I have almost like a hazy, maybe hazy kind of effect to it. Hazy, warm summer morning with that maybe a little fog is just lifting off of the earth as the sun is coming out, and the creatures are all starting to wake up. This painting was definitely inspired by my backyard. I live in the woods. I love birds. And every single morning, I have tons of bird feeders out one of my windows. Every single morning, I have like 50 birds that come and just to have their morning breakfast as I'm eating my morning breakfast. And it's just a really cool experience that I get to have living in nature like this. So those birds, my little country birds, have inspired this painting today, which is delightful to me because I like to paint things that mean something to me, and this definitely has some meaning to me because it makes me happy every single day. Not in the wintertime because they don't come out so much in the wintertime. Sometimes I'll see a cardinal here and there, but not too much. My summer birds are the ones that I see most often. And you can see I'm just kind of cruising along here. I'm getting down into this bottom right-hand corner. I'll make it a little bit darker. I'm adding a touch more of the black to my brush. And again, it doesn't have to be a solid color. I'm just kind of swirling my brush around so I get these different variations of maybe a little bit of blue and a little bit of gray and a little bit of the lighter tones from the white. And this is just going to be complementary to the pop of bright blue that we're going to have from those birds. And then once you've got this all nice and complete, we are going to switch brushes to the medium brush. So you can put this large brush away in your water cup. I'm just sticking my head back, make sure I've got every little spot on my canvas nice and colored in. And then I am going to take out my medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to be doing for the next step is we are painting our stumps. I'm going to be using my medium brush, and the colors that I'm using are black, brown, rust, yellow, and white. And I set it in that order because that's kind of the order I'm going to use them in. I'm going to start with brown, but to make an outline, but then I'm going to go from dark to light. So you'll see what I mean. I'm going to use my medium brush. I'm going to pick up just brown paint, and we're going to do an outline of our stumps first. So how I'm going to do my first one's going to be my shorter one. I'm going to start about halfway over my, into the middle of my canvas at the bottom, and I'm going to come up about, I'd say about a third of the way up my canvas. And it doesn't have to be perfect, and I want a kind of a wiggly little bit of a line. And then I'm just going to kind of make an uneven top, and about maybe 2 or 3 inches over to the left, I'm just going to come down with it. So it's a stump. It doesn't have to be perfect, and I know from experience because I have lots of stumps in my yard. The wind blows, another tree falls down. It's an amazing thing that happens in nature. So then I'm going to come over from this one, maybe about an inch or 2, and I want it a little bit taller. So again, I'm just going to kind of make myself a wiggly sort of line. And then my top can really be, jagged or whatever, and then maybe I come down this right-hand side and maybe make it a little bit more jagged and come all the way down. So now that I've got my outline for my stumps, now I'm going to color them in with vertical stripes, and I'm going to go from the right side, I'm going to go dark, and I'm going to end up light on the left side. Now, it doesn't have to be these perfect sections of color. I'm going to do it really messy, and I'm going to do it really fast because I want it to look like bark. So here we go. I'm going to start with black, and I'm going to put some black over on the right-hand side of each of my trees, and I'm just going up and down in a vertical kind of brush stroke. I'm going to do the same thing on this one over here. I want to hide my outline. That was just really there for your own kind of visual guideline. You don't have to leave it showing. And then I'm going to add the brown to my brush. So now I'm just going into brown, and I'm going to do more vertical stripes. I did not wash my brush. That's the key here. Because when you don't wash your brush, what's going to happen is these colors are going to really, interestingly enough, blend in with one another, and they're going to look a lot more natural. So here I go. I blended in my brown, and I'm not really concerned if some of that black gets carried over. Now I'm picking up the rust color, and I'm going to go further into my tree with some rust. Maybe I bring a little bit down into the darker area down below. The trick here is to make it look messy and not uniform. So now that I've got the rust on that one, I come over to this one, add a little bit of rust, come further on over the left side. And because I'm doing mine kind of fast, my colors are staying wet and they're really blending nice together. Now I'm going to pick up some yellow without washing my brush. I'm going to get some in that center area, make sure I've got everything kind of mixed in together like this. Just getting it nice and mixed in there. I'm filling in the rest of the space with that yellow, and you'll see what's going to happen in a minute. We're going to add some cool highlights with that white color. And again, you can see I'm kind of going fast. These colors are mixing in together. I am using a vertical paint stroke, but I am kind of wiggling my brush a little bit so it doesn't turn out perfect. And now I'm going to pick up some white on my brush without washing it. And now I'm going to kind of, not all the way to the end, maybe a little bit where that white kind of meets the rusty color. I'm going to start adding some highlights. And what's going to happen is I get to use this white to kind of blend in all of these colors. And it's going to add a nice like texture to it. It's going to make it look really pretty realistic, where you still have the dark over on that right side and the light over on the left side. And then once I've got that white on there, then I just start fiddling with my brush to make sure I've got the whole thing painted in, and I've got some rough spots everywhere so it's not so uniform up and down. Now I'm going to add my white to this one. So I picked up a good amount of white, and I'm just kind of wiggling my brush specifically in this section first. So that's kind of the brightest near the left-hand side. And then once it's on there, then I'm just kind of manipulating my brush going over into that right-hand side. And you know, I'm having the sun that's raising over here is in essence kind of casting that highlight onto these stumps, almost like it's like just giving it a little morning kiss, you know, making sure that the stumps wake up so they're fully prepared for all of the birds to come and sit on them later. And then if you want, you can add, you know, little pops of lightness over on that dark side, but just still keeping it dark. That's going to give the full illusion of nice bark. And again, you just have fun with this. If the yellow's too yellow, add a little bit more brown on it. If the rust is too rusty, add some more black on it, and just have fun until you've gotten these as fully executed and with as much texture as you want. And we're going to use this same medium brush for the next step. So once you get this all nice and done, you can wash and dry that medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are painting the base coat for our birds. We're going to use our medium brush, and we're only going to use white paint. So we're going to put what I refer to as a primer coat. So when we put those colors on later, they're really going to pop, and we won't have to worry about any of these dark spots behind it. So when I teach to make birds, I like to give you the information that there are two shapes to every bird. There's an egg for the body, with the pointy part being where the tail comes out, and there's a circle for the head. So it doesn't matter if it's a flamingo or a swan where their head is way far away, or a penguin where his head is really squashed into his body. The base of it is always a circle for the head with different necks, and the body is always an egg with different wings and different feathers and stuff. And so we're going to make our bluebirds with that thought process. So I'm going to put white paint on my medium brush. This particular bird, I'm going to have smaller than that one, and its body is going to be kind of diagonal here, and its head's going to look that way. But all I really need to know to begin is my egg, which is the body, where my tail is going to be. So I think my tail is going to come out over here. So I'm going to make the pointy part of my egg right here, and I'm going to make my egg something like this. And then once I've got, the widest part should be like where the chest is going to go, but you know, your egg might turn out a little bit different shaped than mine, but this is how I'm shaping my egg. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to color it in white, and then I'm going to put a circle for my head. I'm going to put my head right about here. And I know that bluebirds kind of have like a flat top, so I'm going to manipulate the head the way that I think that it is. So they kind of have a little bit of a flat top like this, and then I'm just going to kind of bring this in through here. I'm going to make sure that neck doesn't look like a bobbly neck, so I kind of connect it to the body. And then I can even put my little beak on right now while I know where I want it. So I want my little beak right here. And I know it's tough to see with the white being the color of our base, but it's going to help make your colors pop more. And I'm going to go ahead and put my tail on here too, so it's right where that pointy part is. That's all I'm going to do for that one. My next one, again, all I need to do is figure out where that tail is going to be. So I'm going to have my tail coming out right about here. His body, I don't know if it's a he or she, but it's a bigger one. So its body is going to be more like this. He's going to be more like sitting in, sitting down. So I'm going to have the tail part right there. I'm going to make my egg, I'll make it touch the stump so I don't have to worry about legs and stuff. I'm going to have this come in somewhere like this with its big back part somewhere around there. I'm going to color it in white. And then I'm going to put my circle for my head. So I'm going to have my head somewhere about here. And you want to have it proportionate to that, to whatever the size bird is that you're depicting. I'm going to get rid of this bobbly part of the neck. So I'm just going to kind of put that like that. I know that a bluebird has a kind of a flat head, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of flatten this head so it looks more realistic to the type of bird that I am depicting. And those are just the little nuances. I'm going to put a tiny little beak on here because these birds love to sing in the morning. They are they're not a hummingbird, but they're songbirds. So they have their own, noise that they make. And then I'm going to put my little tail coming off of here. This one's going to come in this direction. And I think I'm going to have a little wing on this one too, coming out the backside. So I'm going to just kind of put that in through there. And then that is all I'm going to do for the base coat of my birds. We are going to use the same brush for the next step. So once you get your base coat on here, you've got it all nice and painted in white, you can wash and dry the medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're painting branches. So I'm going to use my medium brush. I'm going to be using black, brown, and white, and I'm going to use them all at the same time. I'm not going to wash my brush. One time I might pick up brown, one time I might pick up white, one time I might pick up black. So have fun with the colors. I'm going to be just putting a couple of branches up in this corner of my canvas as if, there's this beautiful tree over off in the distance, but the branches are just kind of hovering over our beautiful birds. So I'm going to start with black, brown, and white on my brush at the same time. I'm going to just kind of give myself a couple of branches in here. I'm not terribly concerned about how awesome I render these branches because I know that I'm going to be putting some flowers on them later, some nice flowering blossoms. So don't worry if your branches don't come out spectacular because you're going to be just covering some of them up anyways. So that is all I'm going to do for my branches. I'm just kind of giving the essence of these, of a tree being there. Oh, what are we going to do next? We're going to use the same brush, medium brush, so wash and dry it and get ready for the next step. Okay, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are painting our wild grass. We're going to use our medium paintbrush, and the colors I'm using are brown, green, yellow, and white. And just like my branches, I don't wash my brush. I keep picking up these colors in alternating order. I go really fast with my grass so I don't think about it too hard. And I love the wild side of nature. So this is going to be just long grass. Nobody has mowed this grass in probably ever. It's just out in the middle of nature. So here we go. I'm going to start with green because that's the color that we most easily identify as grass. And I'm going to just kind of start making some wild pieces in through here. I am going to go in front of my stumps to give the illusion that they, in fact, are even hiding out or been nestled into this really long grass. And I'm just starting with green just to kind of get the party started. I'm going to do some tall pieces over in through here. And I like to go fast because I don't want my brain to think about this too hard. I just picked up some brown. I want this to really read as wild out Mother Nature's grass. I don't want it to look like the landscaper just came by and made it all nice and pretty for the picture. I really want it to be wild. I like wild grass. I like going and getting lost in wild grass. I like the critters that live in the wild grass. I just, you know, that's just who I am. Now I'm going to pick up some yellow and white, and now I'm going to get these really vibrant, beautiful pops of the, you know, those pieces that again are getting kissed by the sun early in the morning. They're just coming alive. I do long pieces. I do short pieces. I do pieces that look like they're falling over. You just have as much fun with this as you want. Make sure that you go in front of those stumps so it does look like they're, you know, hidden in the middle of the woods. I've got some going in the middle of them. I've got some going on the, you know, right up the center of them. So whatever is visually appealing to you, just have fun and do it. Again, I'm still in my yellow and white here, making sure I've got some really pretty bright spots in through here. And then we are going to switch brushes to our small brush for the next step. So once you get your grass all nice and wild and you like it and it's nice and full, you can put this medium brush away in your water cup and take out your small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we are putting the blue on our blue birds. So just in case you're not familiar with the bluebirds that we're painting, and you may be familiar with blue jays, they're two totally different birds. They're both kind of indigenous to the New England area, which is where I live in the United States. But these are definitely, bluebirds are smaller. They have additional colors. They have like yellow and rust and stuff on them. And blue jays are blue, black, and white. They're bigger. They have a big, huge pointy beak. So they're totally different birds. We're going to do these cute little friendly blue birds because I like these ones a lot. So I'm going to use my small brush and I'm going to just put blue paint on my brush. And I'm going to be painting the areas on the typical bluebird that have blue, which is the head and the wings and the tail. So the head, it's the entire head and it stops up. Like the neck part is not totally blue. So what I'm going to do, I'm even going to color my beak blue, even though later I'll be coloring that black, but just so I have a visual as to where my beak is going to be. I have blue paint on my brush and I have a shaky hand, so I tend to use my pinky or my hand. I rest them on my canvas. That holds me steady. And I'm going to start with my head and just bring out my little beak here. And then what I do is I'm going to take it down like this into the neck region. I'm going to paint the whole head blue. And I don't know if you guys noticed this yet or not, but your bodies are going in different directions, but your heads are going in the same directions of my bluebirds, which I thought it's a fun kind of concept to have your birds doing that. And it gives you an additional lesson on, you know, how to put them in different, you know, positions. And just so, you know, these birds, they're kind of sitting, well, wait, I digress. I have so many thoughts that go through my head, but I should probably just teach you about painting, right? So that's the head. I think I'm going to have a little sliver of the blue wing coming over on this side, as if maybe it's just a little bit on the other side. I've got a little sliver of the blue wing over here. And then, of course, I have my big blue tail. So I'm going to just put blue paint down in my tail. Their tails go a little bit wider at the end of them, and they're not super duper long. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but I've made it kind of messy where it hits the body. So the other feathers that are coming off the body, you know, they can have a little bit of a rough look to them. Now I'm going to go to the other one. So again, it's the head, so I'm going to go right down that beak, just get that nice and blue first so I know where I'm going, and then I'm going to take that blue, and I know that this whole back area here is his wing and is his wings and his tail. So I can take this and almost just kind of do it in like an arcing motion, because I know this is going to go right into the tail feather. And I'm going to color this whole area over here with blue. So this might take me a minute, so now I can tell you about my fun facts that I know about bluebirds. Not that you were waiting for that, but I do know that if you want to have bluebirds in your yard, if they're indigenous to wherever you live, they love to take baths. So if you put out a little bird bath for them, they are sure to flock to your property or wherever you live. So again, I'm just using blue here. I'm getting my first layer on my wings and my tail feather. And then we are going to use the same brush for the next step, but you're gonna have to wash it and dry it. So once you've got this first layer of your blue on here, you can wash and dry this small brush and get ready for the next step. Okay, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we are doing our black and shadowy areas of the bird. So this is gonna also include the little mask on the face. But our goal here is to continue to tell the story that the sun or the light is over here. So I want the left side of the bird's light and the right side dark. So I'm gonna obviously put shadows on the right side, but logic tells me that also shadows can go underneath the bird, depending on what angle it's at. So I will also put shadows underneath this tail. That's gonna make it look like it's turned in a little bit. I'll put little shadows, obviously, on the right-hand side, and I'll put little shadows underneath here and underneath the wings and on that right side as well. So the colors that I'm gonna be using are black, brown, and blue and white. I'm only going to use blue if I have to in the feather areas, or in the areas that it's blue. If I go too dark or too light, I can use a little bit of blue. But I'm going to be using black, brown, and white for like the shadows in the feathery areas. So you'll see what I'm talking about. But how I'm going to start this, I'm going to start with just black on my small brush. I don't know if I told you I'm using my number 2 brush. And I'm going to start with a little mask area that goes on the face. So what this is, again, I'm just using black paint on my brush. I'm in essence going to paint my beak black, and then I'm going to extend that black area about halfway into the face, which later we'll put a little dot for an eye in there. So we're doing like the beak and the mask area on one step. So here I go. I have just a little tiny beak. So I'm just putting a little tiny area, and then I'm not going to use a big, huge solid line, but I'm just going to kind of wisp it out into the head, about halfway into the head. We'll be putting an eye on there later, so don't worry about it being perfect. I'm going to go ahead and do the other one while I've got that thought process in my mind. And I've got this little beak. I don't know if you knew this or not, but birds, or these kind of birds, as I'm painting the beaks, it's reminding me of the way that the males court the females. These kind of birds, they feed each other. The male feeds the female as a courting gesture. I know that some birds will sing, some birds will dance. None of these birds, they're like, here, let me feed you. It's kind of like the last date I went on. No, just kidding. I guess people do that too. They feed each other to, make the other one like them, I guess. I don't know. It's just a fun fact about the bluebirds. But now that I've got those masks on there, I'm just going to do the dark area over on the right side. So I'm just putting black on my brush right now just to kind of get an idea of where I want this. And I'm not doing a firm line. I really just want the feathers to look like they have a shadow on them. I don't really necessarily want it to look like that whole area is black. So this is a time where you could use black and blue on your brush at the same time. If you fear that you might go too dark, you can always just kind of rub in a little bit of black and blue just to kind of get some of that darkness over in that area. And then I will do the same thing on this little guy with black and blue in the blue areas, so that way when I go to do the body, I can get rid of the blue off my brush. And I'm just going to kind of put these little streaks of darkness in through this area. I don't want to taint the whole thing with a ton of black, but I do know that I want that right side of the head to be darker, and maybe down in through this little wing a little bit. I'm picking up more blue on my brush with that black. I just wiped my brush off on my paper towel just so I can get this to kind of fade into the blue area here. And then I am going to quickly wash and dry my brush because I don't want any blue in the main area. So I'm picking up brown, white, and a touch of black to get the rest of this kind of shadowy area over on this right hand side. And I am going to just kind of wiggle my brush and get it to just kind of blend in a little bit with these feathers. We're going to be doing much more detail on these feathers. Right now we're just kind of putting a little shadow over on this side. So don't worry if it doesn't look awesome yet, because we'll make it look awesome, trust me. I might put a little bit on this neck here too. That's going to tell the story that the neck is a little bit bent or has a little concave aspect to it. So black, brown, and white are going back on my brush to put a little shadow underneath here with these little tail feather, or not tail feathers, the underneath feathers. And then I'm just gonna kind of wisp my brush up in through here. And again, doesn't have to look perfect at this point. We're gonna be doing so many other things to it that will read, make it read more of a story here. And then I am going to wash and dry this same brush for the next step. So you can do the same and just get ready. Okay, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we are finishing our body feathers. And the colors that we're going to use are brown, rust, yellow, and white. And if you want to or need to, you could go into a little bit of black too, but that'll just be on an as needed basis. So the coloring of these birds is they have this like dark brownish rust color that is kind of underneath their wings, almost like in their wing pit as opposed to their armpit because they don't have arms. So it's somewhere in through here. And then as it gets towards that chest and towards the neck, it gets lighter and lighter, more of like a light yellow. But down in through here, it's white. But we don't want to just have a flat white. So you will use a little bit of brown and white to get almost like some texture of the feathers, and then you can put some white on top of it, and then that'll give it a beautiful illusion with some texture to it. So how I'm going to start this, I'm going to start with just brown on my brush, and I'm going to go right near the wing pit. It's going to be my terminology that's going to be stuck in my head for a long time because I've never called it that before. So brown on my brush, I'm going right in through this area, and I'm going to do the same thing on here. I realize I don't have much area to go, so I'm just going to kind of put a little bit over here, and now I'm going to start picking up that rust color without washing my brush. And what's going to happen, I'm doing these little tiny strokes that are, to me, resembling feather tips. So I'm just kind of going a little bit down and out like this, and with a tiny bit of a curve. And it's okay if your colors overlap one another. That's what's going to make it look even more natural. So I've got that going. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to start bringing these feathers a little bit more into the neck area and down into this chest. And if you feel like the bird is curving like this, that's the way that you direct the wing or the feathers to go. Now I'm going to pick up yellow. I'm not going to wash my brush. So what's going to happen is the rust and the yellow are going to make this beautiful like orangey kind of color. And if it's too yellow for you, just by all means add a little bit more rust to your brush. But we're going to add some white on top of it too. And right now I'm just kind of doing these, again, little curved in the contour of what I believe the body to be. So I've got this little curved action going on here. I'm going to do the same thing for this one, getting into that chin area. Going to reload my brush with a little bit of that yellow and rust over here. And then once I've got them as fully put into the space that I want them in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding a little bit of white to my brush, and that's going to add little textures of the feathers on top of it. So you really, this is a, could be a really long process for you, or it could be a really quick process, depending on how detailed you want those feathers to be. So you might want to sit here and render every single feather as an individual feather. But for me, I'm just kind of going for the illusion of having this area being on a similar color palette to what I believe these birds to be. And now that I've got these a little bit of texture with the white, I am going to kind of wipe my brush off on my paper towel. I want to get some of the texture down in through here. So I just picked up just brown and white, and I'm going to give a little bit of dimension in through here. Not much with the brown. As soon as I get a little bit on, what I'm going to do is start wiping my brush off my paper towel, and I'm picking up just white. And I'm going to overlap these little white feathers on top of that brown that I just put on there. And what's going to happen is it's going to make it look more realistic, because now I've got some light areas and some dark areas within that seemingly white section, and that just adds to the illusion of it looking more realistic. If you want it to be a little bit brighter on your yellow area, you can add little pops of the white right on top of it. I'm going to do the same over here, getting this whole area to have some feathers on it, going in a nice natural direction and having some good dimension to them. And again, you can really sit here and have as much, fun as you want, making these really, really pop out. Having your feather, you want the feathers to look like they belong together. So if you have distinct sections of color, then I would recommend just kind of fiddling with it a little bit more, getting these areas to really work together as if they're just one color is just transitioning into the other. I'm going to stick my head back for a minute here. Oh, those are cute. It's tough when I'm at the side over here to really see what I'm doing. We've got one more little detail to go on the birds themselves before we start popping in our beautiful flowers. We're going to do it with a small brush. So once you've got your feathers all nice and fluffed out, you can take this small brush and wash it and dry it in preparation for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are finishing our birds. We're going to be using the small brush, and I'm going to be using black, white, and blue. And before I get started here, some of you might have noticed that we haven't done feet yet. Well, I didn't do feet for a reason, because I didn't want to do feet. So I wanted my birds to just kind of look like they were all comfy and nestled into the stumps. But when I was giving it a second look, I'm like, they kind of look like they were like wobbling a little bit. So if yours look like that too, all you need to do is take a little bit of brown paint. And what I did was I just brought my stump up a little bit right there. And I had a little bit of a weird gap here. So I just brought my stump up here. And now my birds look like they're nestled into the stumps. So you can do that too if you'd like to. Or you can put feet if you want to, but I'm not going to teach you how to put feet on right now. I'm going to finish the faces right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put little tiny, tiny, tiny eyes. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black and a tiny bit of white. I mean, just a little tiny dot. and I'm going to put one tiny dot as my eye. It's going to be about halfway between the end of my face and the end of my mask. So I'm literally just putting a teeny tiny dot. That's all I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and do the next one over here, about halfway between the end of my mask and the end of my face. So somewhere right about here, a little tiny dot. That one's a little too googly for me, so I would just add a little bit of black around it to make it less googly. And yours might have the same thing, so you can just kind of adjust it. And then I'm going to finish the head. So I want there to be a highlight on the top of it. So I'm going to use white with a touch of blue on my brush to give myself a little bit of a highlight on the top of each head. And then I'm going to put some little feathers coming off underneath the beak into the neck. So just a little bit of blue and white. And then once I've got that, then I'm just going to pick up some blue to make sure that I have a full coat of blue in that head. And if you want, you can add more to it or less to it, whatever works for you. Maybe yours looks perfect as it is. I know that mine looked like it was a little bit disconnected and unfinished, so that's why I'm adding some more blue feathers here. And if you have other areas in your painting that need more, or in the birds that need more rendering, feel free to take this opportunity to go, like if you needed more tail feathers or whatever, you could certainly do that at this point. But we're going to switch brushes to our large brush. After you finish your birds, you can put that small brush away in your water cup. This eye's still a little too googly for me, so I'm just trimming it down a little black. There we go. You can put the small brush away in your water cup, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we're on to a super fun part, which is making our flower blossoms on our tree. So the colors that I'm going to be using are rust, magenta, and white. And I'm going to use my large brush, and I'm going to be using a dotting technique. I'm going to be using my dark colors first, which are rust and magenta. I'm going to put all my flowers into place, and then I will take some white and pop in some little highlights. So for me, these are going to be just a big, huge blossoming tree, and maybe some of those beautiful blossoms have been blown off of the tree and had delicately fallen onto the ground. So I'm going to do some in the tree, and then I'll just do a couple on the ground. Or maybe there's flowers that look very similar that are growing on the ground. So you use your own interpretation, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a lot in my tree and then a couple down at the bottom to carry that color down. So I'm putting magenta and rust on my brush at the same time. This is going to create a really cool like three-dimensional textural look to it. And you don't have to do just like pom-poms at the end of every single branch. What you can do is just kind of let loose a little bit and then just start kind of dotting all over the tree. You don't want to be systematic. You want to have some big spots, some little spots. You could even be wild and crazy and put something over here, like there's another tree over here. So you just have fun. Make it as bold or as subtle as you want it to be. I'm going to have some coming down in through here, and I like them to be very chaotic, kind of is the right word. I like to do little clusters of them, but I don't want it to look like I've thought about it, because Mother Nature doesn't really think about where she wants every single blossom. So I like it to have this kind of chaotic look to it. And I've got some over here, and I'm just going to pop a couple of little baby ones in through the ground. And again, maybe these have fallen from the tree, or maybe they're just flowers that are growing on the ground. And now I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm just going to pick up white. So what I'm going to do with this white is I'm going to add these little pops of highlights everywhere. So what I'm initially going to do is just pop in a spot of kind of thick white in various areas. I don't overblend. You can see I'm just kind of popping it on there like this. And you could do it more on the left side if you still want to tell the story of this being the light over here. That would make the most sense. And then once I've got that white on there, now I'm kind of gently dotting it into part of that flower. So I don't dot it 1,000 times and make it all one solid color. I'm really just using the tip of my brush and kind of getting it to look like it's not just one splotch, one dot. So I'm blending it a little bit, but not a lot. And if you want some nice fluffy little pieces coming out, you just kind of carry those light dots out a little bit further than that center area. And I'm just gonna go through this until I have enough of my light parts just nice and placed throughout my flowers. If you need more white or if you want more white, feel free to pick it up. If you want more magenta on this darker side, pick up more magenta. If you want it to look lighter but not white like over here, feel free to just pick up more magenta and just get it carried through that whole tree however much you want it to be. Ooh, I just rhymed a little bit. Carry through that whole tree as much as you want it to be. I have fun in my little pea brain every now and again. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a couple little highlights on these ones that have fallen into the grass or are growing in the grass. And then we have one tiny little step left to go, and it's going to be with your small brush. So once you've got all of your flowers nice and placed within your tree, you can put this big brush away in your water cup, and you can take out your small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do right now is we are doing our final step, which is the final step of any good painting, or any painting for that matter. We're gonna sign it. I'm using my small brush. I'm gonna use black paint. I usually sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm gonna sign this one in the bottom left. I do my initials. You could certainly do your first name or the date or some kind of symbol, whatever you want. It's your identifying mark. You have fun with it. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you love your beautiful blue birds, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.